video is going to be my January reading wrap-up. So we're going to talk about all the books that I read in January. Now, I read 20 books in January, which is honestly insane. But also, like, my month got a little bit slower because I am currently not working because my seasonal position ended at Apple. So I've had quite a bit more time to read, and we basically got to all of the books on my TBR for January, except for two, which was The Rage of Dragons and The Fires of Vengeance. I did talk about that in my February TBR video. I just decided not to pick them up yet because the third book did not end up coming out in January. So I ended up reading like a couple more books that have been on my TBR for quite a while that I was really happy to read. I mean, those books have been on my TBR for a while, but I haven't gotten to them yet. I will when the third book comes out, because I did look up to see whether or not the second book has a really brutal cliffhanger, and people said it did, and I really don't want to wait for that. And before we get into the books that I read, I just wanted to say I picked up a Throne of Glass shirt tonight at the Silent Book Club that I went to. I finally have a Throne of Glass shirt. I've been wanting one for forever, and I thought this was so cute and perfect. I originally was going to get the t-shirt, but I was like, let me get the long sleeve shirt, and this is so comfy. I love it. I'm probably going to wear this to the next Silent Book Club that I go to at the end of February. So let's start off with the first book that I ended up finishing in January. I started this actually on the last day of 2025 because it came out December 30th. And that is In Your Dreams, which is book number 4 in the When in Rome series by Sarah Adams. I really wanted to finish this series, and also I really have been enjoying it. So I decided to start off 2026 with finishing a series, which is great. Like I've said before, I'm not really the type of person that's like in the middle of like a million different series. So anyway, this one is about the last sibling that we haven't gotten a story yet for. So that sibling was, I forget her name, or Madison. Madison and her love interest, James. So basically, Madison has been in love with James for a long time. She's kind of acted like she wasn't really friends with him before. And then he randomly like calls her and offers her this job to cook for him and his restaurant that he's trying to run, because Madison just lost her like big time chef job, I believe, in the city somewhere. It's kind of a little bit similar to like The Magic Lemon Drop Pie, but this is more romance based, and she just gets this she tries to call somebody else, but she ends up calling James, I believe, or maybe he calls her. I can't remember which one it was. But basically, James calls her and offers her a job. I don't know if she's trying to reach somebody else, and he answers the phone, and she's like upset, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And they start talking. It was just so cute the way it happened. So basically, she starts to go work for James, but James doesn't tell her that he doesn't really want to run this restaurant or this like farm anymore. I believe it's a restaurant farm for his parents, because his parents are like they want to retire, and they don't want, and his dad has like heart problems. And then it turns out James has an underlying condition that Madison didn't know about either. God, I didn't realize how much I actually remembered about this book. I actually remembered a lot about my books that I read this month. Because again, I had a lot more time to read, and also I had a lot more time to pay attention to what I was reading. So she ends up, he wants her to work for him because it's the only thing that is going to save this restaurant or farm, because also they're doing like horribly financially. So he hires her to try and see if she can save the business. But he doesn't tell her that. So that's basically what happens. I'm not going to say anything else, so you can read it for yourself. But I thought it was really cute. I gave it a 4 stars. It didn't beat my favorite book in the series, though, which was Beg, Borrow, or Steal. I still love that one the most, but this one was still really good and really cute. I definitely think that the series got better throughout. It kind of like started off the same way as the Rebel Blue Ranch series did for me. I didn't really like the series until after Lost and Lassoed and Wild and Wrangled, and then the series was over. It's the same thing with this, where I really didn't love the first 2 books, but I liked them enough. I liked them more than the Rebel Blue Ranch series in order to keep the books as well, because I still have the physical copies. But I didn't love Practice Makes Perfect or Run in Rome, but they were still really cute romances between the two characters. Excuse me. Um, Jesus Christ, why am I sneezing? I'm sorry. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So then the second book that I read was a buddy read with Felicia, with Becca, and that was Bitten by Jordan Stephanie Gray. This book was on my December TBR, but I ended up not getting to it, so I had a feeling I was going to get to it in January, and I did. I gave this one, I believe, a 4.25 stars. I actually really enjoyed this too. So basically, the main character, Vanessa, she doesn't know that werewolves exist, and her best friend's name, I forget her best friend's name, but basically, they've been best friends since they were kids, and they start, going to high school parties together, and Vanessa invites, I mean, not Vanessa, her best friend invites Vanessa to like this party one night that she really didn't want to go to. She's like, why can't we just stay in and study? And she's like, stop being like a goody goody, let's go out, you want to. And then as soon as she gets there, she like doesn't really want to stay. But then something happens where her best friend gets attacked and she ends up getting killed. And she doesn't know why she got killed. I'm pretty sure this is in the synopsis, so it's not a spoiler or anything. And basically, Vanessa has to figure out why the fuck her, best friend got killed. She also wants to find who actually killed her. But she ends up getting taken and moved into a werewolf academy. So basically, she has to be trained in order to like hone her power and transform into a werewolf, because guess what? She ends up turning into a werewolf. And I think she is both though. I can't remember if she's werewolf and vampire, or is this just a werewolf romantasy? I can't remember. But anyway, she's like the most powerful out of all of them, but also the werewolf queen is kind of like a heartless like piece of shit where she doesn't care about who she kills, and her son is supposed to take over and marry her in order to take power and to take over the werewolf clan. And then something else happens in this book that kind of like twisted it on its head. And I really, really, really enjoyed this. I really liked it. I gave it, again, a 4.25 stars. I liked this way more than Blood Moon. That one I gave like a 2 stars. This was actually really fun and interesting. And the part with her best friend was really sad. So also she didn't know that her best friend is kind of a werewolf too, because she always like noticed that like her best friend was always acting stronger and like would kind of get like a bit of a temper sometimes, and she'd be like, how the fuck does she have like all this strength? And then it turns out that and then she finds out that she's a werewolf. So yeah, why did it just do that? I hate my Goodreads sometimes. I just click the book and then the rating doesn't save. I don't get that. Anyway, so the next book that we read in January is probably the most, not probably, it's the most popular TV show right now. It's been the most popular TV show for the past couple of months. So I decided I really wanted to read the book before I watched the show. So I read the book and then I watched the show like probably a day or two after I finished the book. And that is Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. Now, I did enjoy this. I didn't love it. I gave it a 3.85 stars, rounded up to a 4. I did enjoy the romance in the book, but I felt like it was a bit more smut heavy and not enough romance for me. And I can see why. I'm going to try and not compare it to the show too much, but basically, These are interconnected standalones, so you don't necessarily have to read these in order. I looked it up online on whether or not I had to read the first book first, and it said no, you didn't have to. And honestly, I'm going to read it when, like, I'm not going to binge the whole series. I just wanted to read this one to coincide with the season, and then I'm going to read the books as the seasons come out. So the second season is going to be, I believe, I thought it was The Long Game, but I think it's Game Changer. Because it's about the other couple, Kip and I always forget the other guy's name. Kip and Scott. So anyway, heated rivalry. So I read just this book. So I am technically in the middle of this series, but honestly, I don't really care. I didn't care enough to binge the rest of the series. I wasn't going to do that. I just wanted to read the book so I could watch the show. And basically, this book is about Ilya Romanov and Shane Hollander. And basically, they are on two rival hockey teams and they play for like the Olympics. And they're pretty much the best players on their team. Shane's named the most valuable player. And Shane has never really had a girlfriend. And Ilya's has been known to be like a bad boy. But Ilya's from Russia. And obviously in Russia, being gay is illegal. And they end up starting and developing a gay romance for each other. And it's so fucking cute. It really is. But honestly, like, not even like the first 10% of this book, the smut already starts. And I don't have any problem with that, but it was mostly the smut and not enough of like the romance between the two of them. Like, I wish we would have found out a little bit more about the characters, but at the same time, we do know about the characters. Like, we know that Shane is a bit of like a goody-goody and a control freak, and Ilya is like, he has a very damaged like family dynamic because his father, like controls everything that Ilya does. He doesn't really think that anything that Ilya does is ever good enough. And also all Ilya does is provide money for his family. It's so fucked up because he still ends up getting like flack and blamed for everything with his father and especially his brother, because his brother's like a fucking screwed up drug addict. And all he ever wants from Ilya is money to get coke. So it's pretty fucked up. Basically, Shane is the only like good thing in his life going on, but also like he tries to push Shane away and doesn't really want to develop as strong feelings for him as Shane does for him. And Shane's parents have always like really cared about him, but also like all they've ever really cared about is hockey. He doesn't really talk to them that much about his personal life. And then, after he talks to them and they realize, because he comes out to them. It's not a secret. If you've seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. And then there's this beautiful scene in the show where his mother's like, I just wish you could have I'm so sorry that you didn't think you could talk to me about it. And it's just like, the reason why it's so popular is because it's breaking so many walls down, especially for the Russian gay community. And it's just such a light in TV right now. And the show is so fucking good. And I felt like the show was better because it showed like, a lot more depth for the characters rather than from the book. So I really liked it. I did. Okay, so next up, I finally read my fourth Kristen Hanna book, which was The Women. So this one was on my TBR for January. I finally decided to pick it up. But this one, I kept on waiting for it to get a little better. I still gave it a 5 stars because it's Kristen Hanna. All right, it's like Frederick Bachman for me. I'm going to give every single book that she writes a 5 stars. I still love her writing. But I just didn't get the same feeling as I did with this book as compared to like The Nightingale or Firefly Lane or Night Road. Because I felt like with those books, those were more about like sisterhood and friendships and broken relationships and stuff like that. And also Firefly Lane did take place quite a bit during the Vietnam War, and I'm actually in the middle of watching the Netflix show. So after Heated Rivalry, I kind of took a break from watching shows for like a week or two because like honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to be employed still, so I didn't really feel like watching anything at that current moment in time. But then I started watching Firefly Lane like a week or so ago, and I'm almost done with season 1, and I'm going to finish season 1 tonight, and I'm really enjoying it so far. But the reason why I bring up the Vietnam War is because this book is set during the Vietnam War, and basically, this is about the women that took care of the soldiers as nurses in the battle zones and the battlefield. So basically, the main character's name is Frankie, which her name is Frances, and she wants to enlist in the army. She wants to uh, join the army because her parents, they she has a brother, and her brother ends up being drafted to go to Vietnam, and unfortunately he is killed in action. And so she feels like that she has to do something in order to make her parents proud. So she says that she wants to enlist to go serve in the army. And her parents are basically like, what the fuck? Like, why would you want to do that? And she's like, Dad, you said that you wanted me to enlist. You're always talking about, how we need to fight for our country. And she's like, yeah, but he was like, that's, yeah. Oh my God. He's like, yeah, that's for the men, not for the women. And she's like, well, I can't take it back. I'm going. So then basically it's about her trying to fight and trying to get through being a nurse in Vietnam, and she sees like fucking awful things. And then when she's able to go on leave and go back to the US, everything changes for her because she's suffering from serious PTSD, and she doesn't tell anybody because she thinks that she shouldn't be suffering from PTSD because she's a woman, and also she thinks that mental health also mental health wasn't really a big thing in the 70s. Mental health really didn't start being a thing until like the last maybe 20 years or so, maybe like early 2000s, because got diagnosed with ADD in like uh I believe 5th or 6th grade. So that was like 5th grade was like 2000 for me, I believe. No, it was earlier than that. It was like 1998 or something, because I remember September 11th was middle school for me, which is 2001. So it was like a little bit before that. So yeah. Anyway, so she is continuing to spiral, and then she's disowned by her family, and like a lot of things happen where like the only people she can really turn to are the other women that were in the war with her, and she basically has to navigate her life trying to function in everyday life. And it's very gut-wrenching and a hard read, but also this is the only Kristen Hanna book that didn't make me cry, but I still really loved it. There was like one or two things that happened in it though that kind of upset me, but at the same time like that I didn't love that the main character did, but at the same time like she is suffering from PTSD. She's not going to make sound decisions really because she's suffering from a mental illness. So yeah, I still loved it. So anyway, the next book that I read, so I ended up being on a roll on some books that have been on my TBR for quite a while, so I decided to pick up Catherine Center's The Bodyguard. And for some reason, this is the only like Catherine Center book that I hadn't read yet that I really wanted to read at some point. Because I think this was now like my 7th book by Catherine Center, but I only gave this book a 3 stars. No, 3.5. Because I still really enjoy Catherine Center's books. So basically, but there were some things that I definitely had an issue with in this book. So the main character, Hannah Brooks, is a female bodyguard, and basically she works for like this big, she's supposed to go on like this bigger assignment But her mother just died, and her boss basically tells her that you need to stay on bereavement and you can't come back until you've grieved your mother properly. But she keeps on saying, like, I want to go back to work. I don't need to grieve my mother. I need something to do. And he's like, no, you don't. Go home and you need to actually do this. Which honestly, I kind of had a little bit of an issue with already, because it's like, if she says what she needs to do, why is a man telling her not to? Unless it was some kind of like legal thing, because I know like most jobs have to give you a certain time of bereavement because it's like the law, but also like if someone says they want to come back and work, I think you're supposed to let them. But anyway, so she is supposed to go on like this big assignment like overseas, but then he tells her, you're grounded, you're not going overseas, you're going on the assignment that I tell you I want you to go on. So again, it was like, what the fuck? Like, she's like the best bodyguard in the agency, and basically he tells her that she has to run like this big um local job for a celebrity named Jack Stapleton. So she basically becomes his bodyguard, and long story short, they end up developing a romance. And um but also Hannah was dating like this guy before she went to Jack Stapleton, and the guy breaks up with her like the day that her mom died, or like the day of her mom's funeral. And I was like, oh my god, that's so fucked up. And but also like I kind of went through that with my ex too. Not with my mom, but with my best friend. He tried to break up with me after my best friend died. So he's a gem. He's just the best person ever. Yeah, okay. Anyway, um so those kind of people do exist. It's not just in books. And he like starts dating like this other girl to like make him jealous, but they also work in the same agency together. So she's like devastated, and also like she doesn't want to like be occupied with her thoughts of her mother dying and being broken up with like around the same time, that she's like, give me something to do. And like again, like her boss like is a little a little too sexist, honestly, and it pissed me off. It kind of reminded me of Miss Congeniality though, where they would make sexist jokes about Heart and not being like attractive, and then when she's attractive, everybody's like in love with her and that she's beautiful and all that. But Miss Congeniality kind of pushed it in the right way. This one pushed me like the wrong way. And also like I didn't really love Jack and Hannah's romance. I thought it was a little bit boring. There were some funny parts in this though, but the more Catherine Center books I read, I thought that this book was going to be like as funny as like some of her other books, because I do enjoy most of her books, but this one I didn't love it. So, it was a little bit mid for me. I'm glad I finally read it though. And yeah, I don't really feel like talking about it anymore because there's nothing really else to say about it. So that's basically what happened. Okay, so the next book that I read, I liked even less than The Bodyguard. And I finally read Voyage of the Damned by Frances White. Now, this book has also been on my TBR for quite a while as well. But unfortunately, I gave this book a 2.75 stars. I just was so bored reading this book. I thought that this book was going to be a lot more fantasy driven, but it was fantasy murder mystery, but not good. Like, honestly, there was not enough of a fantasy plot, but also I felt like the murder mystery plot was kind of dragging a lot. So basically, this is like compared to be like kind of like a Agatha Christie kind of fantasy murder mystery. Um but I've seen like some reviews that people have written for like Agatha Christie books, and they say like they don't love her books either, and I was like, well, if that's how Agatha Christie books are, like similar to this, because obviously she was heavily inspired by Agatha Christie, I'm like, I don't know if I want to read Agatha Christie's books either. So, but I've seen a lot of her movies, like Murder on the Orient Express, or like the boat, the cruise ship one, or the one that was in like the haunted mansion. I don't remember the names of them, but I've seen a lot of them and I really like the movies. So anyway, um this one is about the main character Ganymedes Pissarro. Um he's basically like a disappointment to his parents because he turns out to be gay, but that's honestly not even like why he's a disappointment to his, because his parents don't know obviously, but like I just couldn't connect to any of the characters in this book. And basically Ganymedes is trying to figure out who murdered his lover on the ship that they're on. So basically they're on a voyage of the damned, meaning they're on a voyage to die. And people keep on dying in the ship that they're taking the voyage on. So he just so happens to be the first person that dies or gets killed. So Ganymedes keeps on questioning the other people on the boat on who killed him, but they also didn't know obviously that they're together, because obviously he didn't come, because like during this time you couldn't come out to be gay. So basically I just didn't really have any interest. But like also each character has like a different ability called a blessing. And Ganymedes has always thought that his blessing has been more of a, he doesn't even have a blessing. But also he's always been like terrified of water. So his blessing didn't get activated until like more towards the end of the book, because he's always been afraid of drowning. Um, because like something else traumatic happened to him when he was little. I'm not going to give it away. Um, but basically it gets really dark with Ganymedes at one point where, he is feeling like he wants to unalive himself all the time. So check your trigger warnings. But also, like, I felt like it was so depressing at that point. And also, I couldn't connect with his character really, that it was just like making me disconnect to the story, that I didn't really um care about the way things were going, because I was already bored at that point. Like, I don't want to be in, obviously I'm never going to be insensitive to that. Of course not. If you need help, please get help. But like it was done in a way where it was just like uncomfortable. And I know that's supposed to be, it's supposed to be an uncomfortable topic, of course, but I don't know. I just felt like it was very out of place at that point, because, like, we already knew how he felt, and I feel like I did really like the last, like, part of the book, though. I thought that was, like, the best part of the book. But since the story was dragging so much, I just didn't really care about the story anymore. So I hope that makes sense. I was just feeling very detached from the plot. So yeah, didn't love it, but I'm glad I finally read it, and it's a standalone, so I'm glad that I got that off my TBR. Okay, so next up, I read my favorite book that I read in January, besides the last two books that I read in January. So I finally found my first true 5-star of the year, and that was, of course, from an author that I've read before that I absolutely adore his books, and that is The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. I fucking love this book. And this had a similar concept to Voyage of the Damned, with the main character feeling like he wants to unalive himself, but it was done in a way where you really cared about whether or not the main character decided to do that. So I gave this book a 5 stars, and this is now my third 5-star by Mr. TJ Klune. Under the Whispering Door was actually a 6-star read for me. That's still my absolute favorite book by him. And also House of the Cerulean Sea was a 5-star, and now this book was a 5-star for me. I just really loved this book, and also This is like the first book that actually really made me cry in the last like few months. I don't remember the last book that actually had made me cry before I read this book. And it was just such a touching, beautiful story. So basically, this book is about the main character named Nate Cartwright. He's basically lost everything. His parents are dead, and his older brother wants nothing to do with him. So he decides to go up to like this old cabin that um his parents and like his brother don't really use anymore. I think it's also like maybe his childhood home because it has like a lot of stuff from them, but it might have just been like a cabin that they used to use like when they were like camping or like fishing or whatever. So he decides to go up there and basically unalive himself. But he ends up running into these two random people that aren't even people, they're aliens. And basically, the two aliens, which are named Artemis and uh, what is the bodyguard's name? I don't remember the bodyguard's name. Basically, it's Artemis, which is like she's kind of like a kid, but also like maybe like 13, 12 or 13 years old. And it's her and her bodyguard. And he's like the bodyguard of her, meaning like nothing can happen to her. He's supposed to protect her from humans and being on Earth. And basically, Artemis moves in with the bodyguard to Nate's house. And Nate says, like, what are you doing? You can't stay here. And he actually thought that they were capturing him in his own cabin. And then it turns out that Nate wants to be like hospitable to them and he offers to make them like breakfast and he makes them like eggs and bacon and then Artemis becomes like obsessed with bacon and then she's like, you know, you probably wouldn't make breakfast for people that are trying to capture you. And he was like, it seemed like the right thing to do. That's what I'm talking about, that his like comedy is so adorable but also like the way that he interweaves like serious topics with humor is why I love his book so much. And that's like what Voyage of the Damned was like missing for me. Like, yes, of course, we always need to talk about how serious unaliving yourself is. But the way that TJ Klune does it is just so inspiring and heartbreaking. And there's always such a beautiful message with it. So I absolutely love his books. So basically, they end up saving his life because he now is stuck with the two of them because he finds out that they're aliens and basically they have to navigate their lives together. But also, Artemis and the bodyguard are running from, you know, people that want to capture Artemis and they know who she is. And Artemis is actually like an ancient alien. She's not just like a little girl and she has like tremendous power. But also she ends up falling in love with Nate and really caring about him. But also the bodyguard falls in love with Nate and it's like the cutest fucking thing. There is one sex scene in this book though, and I was like, what is this doing in here? But then I was like, I loved the story so much that I didn't even care. I felt like it was a little bit out of place, but I'm like, if it's only one chapter, it's not really like a big deal. Like, you're talking to me. Like, I really don't care about smut in books, but also like he's a very big, you know, gay sapphic author because he is gay himself, and I love that he's such an advocate for the gay community. And I never really like read any books quite like his, and I just love them. They're so good. So they end up going to like this weird town that so Artemis was actually attached to this man, like his body, and she ended up saving him along with herself, but they had to not combine, uh coexist together. And this man has been wanting to be reunited with her for like the longest time because they both feel like a part of them is missing. So they want to see each other again. And the town ends up being like a weird vibe to Nate. And I was like, I don't trust any of these people in this town. And he kind of compares it to like Jonestown. And it's just really weird. So Nate and them have to figure out how, because the man says like you can leave whenever you want, even though when they say they want to leave, they're like, but why would you want to? So things are just a little fishy, and it just unravels from there. And this book was just wonderful. I loved it so much. So I'm going to shut up. Okay, so then the next book I read, so I read a couple of new fantasy releases that came out at the end of 2025. So I'm still reading 2025 releases this year. Like last year, there were so many 2025 releases that I wanted to read that I didn't quite get to still. But I think half of my TBR that I read last year were new releases. So yeah, you can do the math. So anyway, the next book that I read was called The Isle in the Silver Sea by Tasha Suri. So this is my first Tasha Suri book. And if you guys don't know who she is, she wrote the Jasmine Throne series, which is a very popular series. So it's called the Burning Kingdom series. So it's a trilogy, I believe. The last book that she came out with was The Lotus Empire. That is the one I actually knew. I didn't know the other two books, but I do want to read those eventually because I actually really enjoyed this. But this was actually the only book that I was kind of zoning out a little bit when I was listening to it, but I still really enjoyed it. But also, like, I don't know if I just wasn't right in the right headspace for it, but I still really liked the writing. I thought the writing was beautiful. So basically, this book is about a knight and a witch, and they have like a sapphic romance. So they are two women, and basically they have to, it's illegal to be a witch, and the knight has to protect, her kingdom and also her people. So, but they end up developing a romance. So they're basically like enemies to lovers, and they don't want to love each other because, they can't really be together, but they end up falling in love anyway. So I gave this book a 4 stars. That's really what it's about. I can't really say much more. I just, again, really love the writing. The magic system was really unique. I feel like I kind of want to do a re-listen of this at some point because, again, I really, really enjoyed it. So basically they have to, it says, when the two women begin to fall for each other, how can they surrender to their desires when to give in is to destroy each other? So basically they're destined to destroy each other because they can't be together. And there's like this one part where basically one of them dies because they can't be together. And then they navigate how to bring each other back. So that's what keeps on happening throughout the book. So that's basically what happened. Now I remember. As they seek a way to break the cycle, a mysterious assassin begins targeting tales like theirs. To survive, the two will need to write a story stronger than the one that fate has given to them. But what tale is stronger than the knight and the witch? So there's a lot of folklore in it, a lot of tales in it, like not real tales, but and I'm probably going to go after I get like halfway through this because I've been talking for almost 40 minutes already. I didn't even realize that. But yeah, I really liked this. Okay, so next up, I read a YA standalone fantasy romance, which you don't really find that many standalone YA fantasy romances. Usually it's like adult ones, but also you don't even find that many standalone adult ones either. So this one is called 7 Deadly Thorns by Amber Hamilton. Now, this one caught my eye last December, and I decided to get it with like the Barnes & Noble gift cards that I had. So I got this one along with The Isle in the Silver Sea, and I read a couple of them this December. So I read quite a bit of them that I picked up recently. And basically, I really enjoyed this book. I gave this a 4.5. I thought it was so good. And basically, this book is about the female main character named Viola and the male main character named uh Rosie. I don't know how to say his name. Rose. Rose. Not Rosie, you idiot. So basically, um, Viola has always been able to wield shadows, but also she's never been able to control her powers. So she ends up killing people that she doesn't want to kill. It's kind of similar to like Air of Storms by, it's not by Amber Hamilton, but it's by somebody else named Hamilton, actually. But anyway, the second book actually comes out the end of November called 12 Dark Hours. Wait, no, that's not the second book. Is that the second book? Wait a second. This is different. Oh, this is inspired by Cinderella. Ooh, I'm so excited to read that one. So this one, Seven Deadly Thorns, is inspired by Snow White. So I guess they're kind of like interconnected standalones, which is even better. So anyway, she's always been afraid to use her powers, and basically she's in a school where she learns to control her powers, and she has a best friend, and the prince doesn't really have like relationships with like his subjects, and then he randomly decides that he wants to marry Viola one night because they actually end up having to have a pact to marry each other, because turns out that he is destined to kill her within 7 days using 7 deadly thorns. And that's why it's called that, because his mother is an evil bitch. So she's basically the evil queen, and she looks in like the magic mirror all the time. And that's where the Snow White story comes in. And basically his ability is that he's like a touch people and die. Like he can't touch anyone or they will literally instantly die. But somehow she is able to withstand some of his touch, and they end up developing a romance. But also she's destined to die, and she's supposed to die in order to save their kingdom. So some crazy shit happens in this book. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. So that's basically what it was about. And I really liked it. Okay, so next up is another book that's been on my TBR for quite a while. So we've went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so this is the 10th book. So I'm going to stop after this, and then we'll say the rest tomorrow, because then that's another, at least we're halfway through. So this one I buddy read with my girl Felicia, and that is Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. You guys, I did not like this book either. So I had two-star books in January. So my reading was kind of all over the place this month. I kind of read some books I really loved. I read some books I really liked. I read some books that were kind of mid, and I read some books that were not good. So basically, this book is about the two main characters, Percy and Joe. And basically Percy is like, Joe is like a singer-songwriter, and Percy is not really a songwriter. She just has a great ear for music and for lyrics. And basically she ends up helping him like write his songs. And he ends up becoming like a bigger, like a music star. And she would constantly like help him write his songs, but she never really wanted like a big credit for it, because she didn't exactly like co-write it. She would just like clean it up. But also like he never really thanked her in the acknowledgments of writing the song, because he didn't give her a co-writing credit, because she wasn't a songwriter yet. So basically she ends up falling in love with him, and he falls in love with her, but they constantly like keep each other apart for really no reason. Okay? This book ended up being like so boring to me, because they developed a romance, but then they ended up being like so mean to each other and not being together for basically no reason. they just decided to sleep with other people because they kept on hurting each other for no reason. I honestly don't even remember why they weren't together, because everybody thought they should be together, but then they were always so just rude to each other and like would always fuck each other over and sleep with other people, and I'm just like, I am not connecting with this romance or this story whatsoever. And I had seen a lot of mixed reviews about this book, and I'm sorry that I have to agree. So again, I gave it a 2.5 because there were a couple of things that I thought were funny in it. But besides that, for such a short book to be literally so boring and bad, I'm surprised. So I didn't love it. And that's it. That's basically all it was about. You're not really missing much if you haven't read it. All right, so I'm going to stop and we're going to talk about the rest tomorrow. So bye. Okay, so now I am back and I decided to keep the like books that have been on my TBR for a while going, and I decided to pick up another book that's been on my Kindle for a while. So I had read The Bodyguard, and then I kind of wanted another romance because like I didn't really love The Bodyguard, but also I didn't end up loving this one either. And the next book that I decided to read was Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. This is my first regular romance book by Julie Soto. The only other book that I've read by her is Rose in Chains, and I really did not like that book. And I had seen that somebody had reviewed, I'm not sure if it was this one or Forget Me Not, and they said, I don't think Julie Soto is the author for me, and I feel the same way. I don't think I'm going to be reading any more of her books. I kind of feel a little differently about B.K. Borison, because there's like a lot of things that I really like about B.K. Borison's books. It's just usually like I've said before, like the last like 20% is usually when her books go downhill for me. But I enjoy it for the majority of the time. But this one, I thought it was cute, but then like throughout, I didn't really love it because I thought it was a little bit, again, like a little bit too much smut and not enough of like the development of the romance, because I felt like all of a sudden they were having like sex already, like not even halfway into the book. And so anyway, let's talk about what it's about. So this is about a girl named Gwen, and the main male character is named Xander. And basically Gwen is trying to like become, like get a name for herself as a violinist. So she starts out being like a wedding player, and like is part of like wedding bands and like plays in, you know, weddings for the entertainment. And she ends up evolving to become first chair of like the I'm not sure what orchestra, but apparently it's like, you know, the biggest orchestra probably in Carnegie. I think it's Carnegie Hall possibly. I don't remember if they mention Carnegie Hall in the book. But anyway, Xander has been first chair for a really long time, but I don't know if he was first chair of the cellists or the violinists. But anyway, you know, since Gwen plays the violin, she becomes first chair of the violins, but everybody has always thought that she would be a better cello player. It's called the Pops Orchestra. It says it right in the synopsis. So anyway, Xander's like really unhappy about this. So he is really like mean to her, but then they end up developing a romance because he thinks that she's way more talented than he gave her credit for, but he thinks that she should play more freely as an artist rather than like in an orchestra. And it's like he constantly like tells her like what to do rather than saying like he would constantly say that you're better than this. And it was kind of like annoying me the way that he was like like I understand if like you say, you know, you shouldn't be playing, but also like if she got to where she needed to be or where she wanted to be because that was her dream, why are you like pushing her to do something that she didn't want to do? And then he ends up like kind of convincing her that you should be like a more free player. And it's like, but meanwhile Xander has been in like the orchestra for like a long time, but also he was under contract, but he wants to be more of like a free like freelance player too. and he's fighting with his agent to not be like part of the orchestra anymore. He wants to make a like, but he's already made a name for himself, but also like it has to deal with like men and women in like the orchestra industry, not just the music industry, but like in the instrumental industry as well. So that's about it. Like honestly, I didn't really care that much about the romance because I just thought I didn't really get the chemistry between the two of them because all it was smut. So it wasn't really that much of like going out on dates because he didn't really want people to know that they were dating, which also annoyed me too. Um, but he said that this was supposed to protect her from her agent. And then he was so obnoxious to her, like when they were in front of her agent. And it's like, just because these men like do these things to like either protect the woman or like protect themselves doesn't mean they have to be so fucking mean about it. Like he said, like she means nothing to me in front of his agent because he thought that she was his new girlfriend. And it was just so mean. I'm like, what the hell is up with those like these demeaning men? He could just say, no, she's not my girlfriend. What are you talking about? We're just friends. You know? I know that's like more suspicious, but also like, what the fuck? Like, you're a big fucking player, and he always would act like so mean to her, and I just didn't love it. So I gave it like a 3.5, I think. Maybe a 3.5. Honestly, I might lower it to 3.25, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. I just don't really care. So anyway, the next book that I read, I really ended up liking because I'm like, I was feeling a little slumpy because I was like, I read like 2 books that were just kind of mid and I didn't really like very much. So I wanted to go into an author duo's books that I know that I really like because like I said before, I don't know if I said this like in a recent video, but I read Sarah Rach and Beth Davis's other duology called The Night of the Witch and the Fate of Magic, and I read that back in October finally. So I finally had gotten that one off of my TBR, but then they had just come out with a new release back in December, which is called The Crimson Throne. So I decided to pick this one up. And I really enjoyed this book. Like really enjoyed it. If worse comes to worse, I always pick up a YA fantasy to make myself feel better. I'm gonna take this off. This is really itchy. Just give me a second. I'm back in my comfy clothes and I just wanted to put my Throne of Glass shirt on again. So I wore that sweater for literally 1 book and then I'm like, I'm sick of this. So anyway, but I did wear it out to Barnes because I met Felicia to read for another hour again. Okay, so the next book, like I said, is called The Crimson Throne. And this is about the main characters, Samson and Aelith. And basically they're from 2 different Fae kind of clans. And they are both supposed to plot to kill the Queen of England. And that's all I'm really going to say, because this book was just so fun. I loved the magic in it. It just kept me reading, and I just wanted to know whether or not they were going to kill the queen. And then the twist at the end was so good that I cannot wait for the second book. So the first book that I read by Sarah Rach and Beth Davis, I gave it 5 stars, which was Night of the Witch. I freaking loved that book. So I was like, I know I'm going to like this book, and I really did. I gave it a 4.5 stars. Let me just say a little bit more of what it's about. So it says, Samson Calthorpe's curse has ice. Oh, right, he's cursed. So he can't really, like, get close to Aelith, even though he starts falling in love with her. Because, of course, they start developing a romance. Because he doesn't even know what his curse actually is. Like, he doesn't know his power because he doesn't remember. But also, if it's unleashed, she knows that he could kill, like, potentially everybody. Like, that's what happened. Now I remember. So yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. What else does it say? All he has to do for his freedom is risk his life and become a royal spy, using every bit of the skills and resolve he's picked up on the streets of London to infiltrate the court of the Scottish Queen and uncover a plot to assassinate Queen Elizabeth. So good, right? For years, Aelith Graham has been protecting Mary, Queen of Scots, from threats both physical and magical, including the Queen's own husband, Lord Darnley. Oh, yeah. Darnley's like a serious threat, too. So she has to, like, protect her from him as well. And he's like a piece of shit. Aelith is more than meets the eye, though. The child of a Fae prince and a human mother, she is among the most powerful protectors in Scotland. Okay, so she's her protector, not trying to kill her, too. I'm sorry. Is that mascara? I have, like, a little bit of makeup on. Like, I just have, like, mascara, blush, and highlight, and gloss on, so, because I just threw it on before I left. So yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to read any more of it. I just thought it was so fun. I gave it a 4.5 stars, and I'm very excited for the second book, which comes out, I believe, in September or October. So yeah, so I read most of the books that I got with my gift card from my friends from Christmas from Barnes & Noble, which, you know, I love them. It was so sweet of them. So then I decided to read a couple new thrillers that were coming out, and I was so excited for this book, and this was one of my favorite books that I read this month. And this is now my third book by Mr. John Marrs, and that is Dead in the Water. And I knew from the time that I saw the teaser for this on Instagram, I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited for this book. That made like the biggest red mark on my face like ever. Sorry. So anyway, this was a fucking ride, dude. So basically, what's his name? Damon is the main character, and he goes so crazy thinking that he has an involvement killing a kid by drowning them. And it turns out that's not even remotely close to what actually happens. And when things start unraveling, oh my god, it's just so ridiculously unhinged in the best way. Like, the way that John Marrs makes you care about unhinged characters is like kind of unmatched. And now this is the third book by him that I've loved. I still haven't given any of his books 5 stars, though. This one was really close. I gave this a 4.65 because I absolutely loved the way that the twists and turns came together in the end. I don't know if it exactly went in the direction that I would have wanted it to, but also it tied together so well. It was a bit confusing and it kind of hurt my brain, but then I saw somebody's review of this book say, there's so many twists and turns that it was really hurting my brain, but in a good way. And I was like, I literally felt the same because I'm going to compare this book to another thriller that came out like a week later in like a second. But this one tied up so well at the end that like all the twists actually made sense. And I was like, oh my god, how is he going to pull this off and pull it together? And he did. But there was just like 1 or 2 things in it that didn't quite make it a 5-star for me because there was one part that was a little bit too far-fetched that I'm like, I don't think a 3-year-old would be able to do this. Because like child killer kind of stuff like doesn't always like, you know, I mean, in The Housemaid is Watching, if you haven't read that book at this point, she's older than 3. But this kid is 3 years old. Okay, I'm not telling you which kid it is. I'm just saying it's a kid. Because that'll give away the whole plot if I say who it is. And they decide to kill their brother, who's like a baby. Because they're jealous that they don't get enough attention. So basically, one of the characters suffers from an independent personality disorder. So they're afraid, I'm just going to say because you'll find out. They're afraid that of people like abandoning them, like kind of similar to like borderline personality disorder, but they get so crazy that they don't want anyone ever to leave them, and that's how the story unravels. And also there are other characters that are like closer to the main character that so Damon keeps on going crazier and crazier, thinking that he had some kind of involvement in this child's death and child's murder. And his ex-wife's name is Melissa. And they ended up not obviously working out. She left him because she ended up being a lesbian. And she's now with another woman. But Melissa keeps on trying to help Damon, God, this book is so good. I'm just thinking about it and I'm like, oh my God, this book was so fucking good. Um, she still tries to help Damon in any kind of way, like no matter how far that she needs to go in order to help him with something. And it gets crazy. So I'm just gonna leave it there. It was so good though. And then the whole plot gets turned upside down on its head, and a lot of people get killed. So I just love that John Mars isn't afraid to go there with his unhinged characters. Like sometimes people say like, or like certain authors like Freida McFadden say, oh, they're unhinged, but they don't do anything. But like, we're about to talk about it in the Freida McFadden release that came out 2 weeks ago, because I read like 3 new thriller releases that came out in January. So yeah, I loved this one. This one was by far my favorite one out of the 3 that I read. I also have a whole vlog on it in reading new thriller releases if you want to go check that out. Okay, the next book that I ended up reading has been a series that has been on my TBR for quite a while, but I just decided to go into this because there's only 2 books in the series. And honestly, I'm glad that I went into these books before, because I was going to read them anyway before the 3rd book came out. I wasn't going to read them until March because the 3rd book comes out March 10th. But I was like, you know, I'm going to read these within the next month or 2 anyway, that I just decided to read them like the 3rd week of January. Like I just wanted like a dragon kind of fantasy book. So I was like, you know what, let me read these, because it ended up being, you know, a good decision, because I don't know how many new releases are coming out in March. There are quite a few that I want to read, that I was actually happier reading these in January, so I didn't have to worry about reading the first 2 books before the 3rd book comes out. So, because I'm in the middle of Red Queen right now, so I didn't want to pile on another series that I have to catch up on just to read the 3rd book. So I was like, you know what? It worked out. So it was a mood read, but also strategic. So I read the first book in the Bloodwing Academy series, which is On Wings of Blood by Briar Bolin. I finally decided to pick this series up. So I did end up reading books 1 and 2 in January. So I just read book 2 after I finished another thriller. I didn't feel like going into the 2nd book right away. So basically, this book was kind of all over the place with the plot, but I enjoyed it. Like, I wasn't like obsessed with it. The same thing with like Red Queen. I'm not obsessed with it, but I like where this story is going, that I am intrigued to read the 3rd book. That's why, like I said, I'm going to be reading the 3rd book in March, because I'm going to continue the series, because I'm still like interested into where it's going. So this book is about Medra and Blake, and Medra is like part of like an ancient line of dragon riders, and no one has seen dragon riders or even dragons in such a long time. She's kind of like the first dragon rider that vampires have found in like a long time. So the only thing that this book was lacking is that I wish that there was more vampire things going on in it. I feel like there wasn't enough blood. There wasn't like enough vampires, and there wasn't enough dragons. And there was like a build up, but it wasn't like as annoying or boring as This Woven Kingdom. I was like, okay, we have an actual point of where we're going in the story, but we didn't see dragons until the last like 5 to 10 pages, which does annoy me a lot. But I was like, oh, I know that there's going to be more dragons in the 2nd book, but there wasn't really that many dragons in the 2nd book. But anyway, so she ends up becoming, the Highbloods take her to Bloodwing Academy. So it's kind of similar to what happened in Bitten. And she has to go there to train to like hone her power of being a dragon rider. But like I said, she's like the most powerful dragon rider that, you know, she can will dragons, she can control them. So people are afraid of, you know, what she's capable of doing. And also Highbloods, like vampires, they don't care who they kill. They like mindlessly kill like any other kind of vampire does. And she needs to look out for herself too, because she doesn't know like what they're gonna do. So I really did enjoy it. It was a little bit slow at times, but I still enjoyed the build up. So I gave it a 3.75. I wasn't like obsessed with it. I thought I was going to love it a lot more than I did, but I liked it a lot more than the other fantasy book that I read after I read these books. But I wanted to talk about the audiobook I ended up listening to. I just ended up listening to this completely, and I finished this before my physical book even came. So I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram, but I had like this whole thing happen with Book of the Month where I had ordered my Book of the Month, and I'll talk about my Book of the Month in a second, but this was my add-on, which was Alice Feeney's My Husband's Wife. So I ended up listening to it completely because my box got so delayed because they had said they had ran out of copies of My Husband's Wife, and the box got delayed fucking 3 times. It didn't come to me until the 29th of January when I had already finished this book like the week before that, and then I had finished my Book of the Month like 2 days after that. So because I ended up finding my Book of the Month on Kindle Unlimited, so I just read it on there, and I borrowed the book from Libby. And then I did the same thing with this. I just borrowed the audiobook from Libby. So I don't know why the hell I just did that. So anyway, long story short, I ended up listening to it completely. And this is Alice Feeney's newest release. And I kept on seeing 5-star reviews for this all over the place. So I was like, ooh, this might be like my 5-star thriller, because I actually have given one of Alice Feeney's books 5 stars before, and that is Beautiful Ugly. I don't care. Argue with a wall if you don't think it's good. I fucking love that book. That is the most perfect slow burn thriller to me. I absolutely loved that book. I had originally rated it like a 4.5, or I think like even a 4.75, and then I literally would not stop thinking about it that I just raised my rating like a month or two ago to a 5-star, because I'm like, that was the best thriller that I read last year besides what's it called? Billy Summers, which I had finally read as well, because that one's been on my TBR for like 10 million years. So anyway, this book is insane, but also like it's not as cohesive the way that it's being told as John Mars's book was. John Mars's book really came together in the end, but also like I feel like, and also y'all know I love British thriller authors. I think that they're better than American thriller authors because they know how to write a twist, and they know how to keep you guessing, and they know how to creep you out a little. You know, like the American thrillers are just like so dumbed down, and I fucking hate it sometimes. But sometimes too many two twists is a little too much. And it got very confusing for me to follow in the last like couple of chapters. I listened to the ending of this book 10 times, still couldn't tell you what actually happened, and that hurt my brain in not a good way. So basically, this book is about a woman named, what is her name? Birdie. Yes, right? No, not Birdie. I forget what the woman's name is. Basically, the woman lives with her husband, and they had moved recently to Hope Falls because they wanted to come somewhere that, you know, they was a little bit more quiet, a little bit more private, a little bit more peaceful, so she could paint her art because she's a painter. And anyway, she has always had like this one thing that's been haunting her for a long time. I'm not going to say what it is because that's a spoiler. So basically, she goes to run every day to like clear her head about what is like happening so she can like stay a little bit mentally stable. And basically, she tries to come home after her run, and her key doesn't work in the lock. And it turns out that he acts like she's not his wife, and this other lady ends up being there and says like, who are you? This is our house. You're not his wife. So she ends up being thrown out of her own house. And basically the whole story is you're trying to figure out why the hell he's claiming that he doesn't know her and is not married to her anymore, and that's where Birdie comes in, because Birdie is the town police, like town sheriff. But if you read it, you'll understand. So, basically that's what happens without me giving anything else away. But and also they do have a daughter, and she doesn't talk to her daughter anymore. They're estranged, but she ends up having to go back to her daughter to try and see why the hell her father's claiming that that she's not married to her. So that's basically what happens. But I felt like towards the end there was a POV that was introduced from the daughter that was a little bit too late in lately inter it was too, oh my god, can I speak? It was too late in the book to introduce this plot line, because like with John Mars, he introduces each plot line pretty early into the book. With this book, it was mostly with the main character's POV until probably like 40 or 50% into the plot. But, you know, she had introduced the husband's POV and also the Birdie's POV, which is she's the sheriff. So that made sense when she was introducing them like 40 or 50% in. But then she didn't introduce the daughter's storyline until like 85% into the book. And I'm like, that's a little late. And then like towards the end, like after twist after twist after twist, and I was like, oh my god, we're gonna get like why the fuck this is happening. But I also like looked up on Reddit to see if someone could explain like the ending. And most people are really confused by it still, and they're like, this was like a little bit too many twists. So I'm like, I'm glad I'm not the only one. I think I had figured it out, but also I feel like it's way too many. Like, I'm like, am I too dumb to read this? But I know I'm not, because I've really loved the other two books that I've read from Alice Feeney. So now I've read 3 books by her. I read Rock, Paper, Scissors, Beautiful, Ugly, and My Husband's Wife. And Rock, Paper, Scissors, and My Beautiful, Ugly, I loved the twists in that book. There also wasn't too many twists to confuse the shit out of you. But also, I kind of like when authors do that, because like they kind of like stray you away from like the person that you think did it. And I like that you're shocked at the end when like they've convinced you so much that like this person did it, not the actual person that did it, and it kind of gets you. But this was just fucking confusing. I gave it a 4.25 stars though, because I still love her writing. I'm still going to read more of her books. The next book I'm going to read by her very soon is called His and Hers, because I really want to watch the show. I actually listened to the prologue just to see how the narrator was, and I'm probably just going to listen to it because, again, I love her audiobooks. And so far, I'm fucking hooked on that one. I'm probably more hooked on that one than I was on this one. But I really expected this to be a 5-star, but unfortunately not. So, but not to say I still didn't love it. Okay, and then I ended up reading the second book in the Bloodwing Academy series, which is called The Bond That Burns by Briar Bolin. And basically, this is elaborating more on what happened in the first book, and now the second book concentrates more so on her trying to see if she wants to bond with her dragon, because if she does, because now there's a lot more of a dragon in this book, because, you know, since they had now awakened the dragon that is supposed to be her dragon, it turns out that the dragon is going to be a danger to all of them. Like, he could really, like, mess them up, because obviously, like, he's a dragon. And in his, like, past life, he had killed a lot of vampires, and they're trying to determine whether or not he is safe to keep awake still. Like, they want to put him back to sleep. And there's, like, of course, an evil uncle of Blake that, you know, hates Medra, and he basically wants to, like, drain her of her power, and he wants to control the dragon, but also he like hates her and makes Blake do all of his bidding, basically. So it is kind of similar to Fourth Wing in that way. even though I think the first one came out in, I don't think it was that long ago. I think it was like 2022. No, it's traditionally published in 2024. I think it was published a little before that, but I think Fourth Wing was already published by then. So they're very similar, but also like I still really liked the characters though. I thought they were funny at certain points, and I did like their romance. So this wasn't like Red Queen, where it's not really that romance heavy. And in like most of the other fantasy books that I read, I was actually really liking the romance more so than in the romance books that I read. So I enjoyed it. I'm excited to read the third one. I felt like we got more answers in this book, but also I felt like it was a slow burn again to like one thing, and I'm just like, okay, can like something else happen for me to like love the series? But I like it enough to continue. Like I said, it's not like this Woven Kingdom where I'm like, I hate it. I just feel like this series has a lot of potential to be better. So, yeah. Anyway, I liked it. I'm not going to say any more because it's going to give away too much of the second book. But I would say read it if you were interested. But again, I feel like there wasn't enough vampires, but we did get a lot more of Blake's background in this book. So yeah. That's about it. So anyway, the next book that I read, which I feel like I'm a glutton for punishment at this point, reading more of Frida's books, but I really wanted to read her new release to compare it to Alice Feeney's and John Mars's books, and that is Dear Debbie. So this was the last book that I read in that thriller vlog, and basically this is about Debbie, and she is married to, I forget his name. I don't see his name in the synopsis. I really hate when authors do this sometimes. And actually, I don't even think the authors write the synopsises sometimes. I think it's usually the publishers. But I hate when they don't put the other name of like the other main character. So basically, she's married to her husband and she has a daughter. And Debbie doesn't work. She has like this advice column called Dear Debbie. And like, oh my god, can I fucking open this? And, like, women who are married write to Debbie and ask her for her advice. And it's kind of similar to, like, The Housemaid, because in The Housemaid, Millie ends up, like, helping people that, or helping women that are abused. Hold on one second. Sorry, I just got hungry again. So, I have, like, these cookies from Megan's bridal shower in front of me. They're so cute. So yeah, I don't want to make this video too long, but I did have 20 books to talk about, so we're almost done. I think we have like 4 more to talk about. So anyway, so Debbie writes for like a local newspaper, and women like write to her and like to get advice for like, you know, how to deal with something that their husband's doing that they don't like, or doing something to them. Like, one says, my husband hates how I cook, and no matter what I do, he hates my cooking. And then Debbie writes, like, these unhinged responses at some point, but she doesn't submit them. But her husband ends up, like, finding them on her computer, but he doesn't find them until, like, way later into the book. But basically, Debbie is hiding, you know, a lot about herself. And I really wish that we would have, like, found out more about Debbie, like, Debbie's past and everything. But I felt like she didn't go into it enough. But also I thought that Debbie was, like, the best female main character that Frida has written in the past, like, year. Like, I liked this book a lot more than the other 3 that I had read. Because I thought some parts in the other books were just kind of dumb. But this one, again, it always starts off strong in, like, the first 50%. And then it's the last 50% that, like, kind of goes downhill for me. But I still liked it. But it turned out to just be Debbie that was, like, the unhinged person. And, like, but then we didn't have, like, anything else really, like, build up that much. And then, like, but she did all of this to frame other people so she wouldn't get caught. So that's basically what happened. But I thought it was going to go in like a different direction where like another character was going to be involved in the murders that were happening, because obviously she started committing murders because, you know, she's nuts. Um that's basically it. Basically, she'll do anything she can for her family. And something traumatic happened to her in her past. Now I remember what happened, actually. So they went into her past and said what the traumatic event was. But also her husband is like hiding things from her too. Not in a great way, because they shouldn't be hiding anything from each other. But anyway, the husband is hiding something else that turned out to not even be as big of a deal, and she made it like it was supposed to be a twist, and I was like, that's like a problem that, you know, was very common. And I'm not saying like I'm making it like it's not a big deal, because it is, but I'm like, that I thought that he would have like, you know, some dark past, that he did something that he shouldn't have in the past, or like killed somebody, but like it turned out to not be that, so that was a little bit disappointing. I gave it a 3.5 because, again, I did like it, but I didn't love it. I really thought that this one was going to be a 4-star, but unfortunately not. Okay, and then the last, actually the second to last fantasy book that I read in January was Dawn of the Firebird by Sarah Mughal Rana. Did not like this book. I ended up giving it a 3-star, though, because part 1 started off so strong. I was so intrigued by the plot in the first part, but then the second part dragged on so much. It was so repetitive, so boring. And then the third part I thought was going to be the same, but I actually thought that the last 10% picked up. And then I was like, okay, I am interested again. But honestly, I don't think I'm going to continue this series. I don't care enough to continue it. So unfortunately, I'm going to DNF the series. But I decided to read the first book to see what it was about. But honestly, again, since the first book was so painful to get through, I'm not going to continue it. I ended up giving it a 3-star. I honestly think that this book could have been maybe 100 pages shorter at least. I think we could have cut out half of that middle part, and then I probably would have liked it more if it was 400 pages or something. And I'm not saying every single fantasy author has to make books shorter in order for it to be more digestible for the reader. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying this suffered from severe pacing issues, and I didn't end up again caring about any of the characters really. So the main character's name is Camilla, and it is a higher fantasy book. It's not a romantasy, which again is fine. I love regular fantasy books, but you gotta keep me interested in order for me to care. You have to make me care at least about one character, because I've found now, reading as many books as I have at this point, that I gotta care at least about one character in order to like the book in any kind of way. Unless it's Cruel Prince or Red Queen that I'm reading right now, where the characters are assisting a really good story or a really good plot. For Red Queen, I'm not really obsessed with any of the characters, but I'm really liking the story and the plot. So, anyway, unfortunately, I just didn't really like this book. So Camilla basically has been treated like shit most of her life. She's a woman, and she goes through brutal training in order for her to fall in line and to find a husband and just please her father, when she knows that she's never going to please him, and her father just turns out to be the emperor. And the emperor ends up getting attacked one night, that Camilla ends up escaping and leaving him because a couple of her family members end up being killed. And she's I can't stay with you anymore, father. But it's pretty serious because, he's always treated her like shit. And, she ends up going to be trained with a school full of jinn to become a warrior and a djinn, you know, similar to this Woman Kingdom. So I guess it turns out that I don't really like djinn stories all that much because, like, I don't know, I just don't like the writing. Even though there was some beautiful moments in this book, I didn't like it enough to continue it. So I don't think it's djinn stories. I just think I don't love the writing, which is totally fine. So basically, and then in the third part, you know, they have to defeat like the evil, and they use their training to obviously defeat the evil monsters that they have to kill in order to save the world and the kingdom. So that's basically it. That's what happened in it. I remembered most of it, which again, I'm proud of myself, which I'm really surprised that I did because I thought this book was never going to end. And also, there's a lot of mixed reviews about this book, and it's more so like people think that one author like really doesn't like this author, and they keep on like having bots on Goodreads leave like bad reviews. And I did watch a video on it, and I do believe that is probably what the case is. So that's why I just went ahead and read the book, because it's like, I don't believe any of this stuff until I actually see proof of it. And I watched the video, and it said that, you know, it was mostly bots that were giving this book a bad review. And I saw that like these users on Goodreads didn't even have like a profile picture. They even have like a real name. So we're like, okay, these are not legit reviewers that are giving like this book 1 or 2 stars. But then after I had finished it, I read some legit reviews of it, and a lot of people didn't like it. So I'm seeing a lot of 1, 2, 3-star reviews of people that actually couldn't even get through it, or they said like the book was a little bit too pretentious and a little bit too much info dumping, which I definitely agree. There was too much world building and too much info dumping. Like, we understand, we know what's happening. You have to progress the plot of the character a little bit more than keep on developing the same plot point and the same world building. That's what got repetitive and boring to me. So unfortunately, it just didn't work out. So anyway, the last fantasy book that I read in January, and I actually had 2 back-to-back 5 stars at the end of January after reading, again, a very mid book. I read Rings of Fate by Melissa de la Cruz. You guys, I freaking loved this book. I gave it a 5 stars. I really do not care if people say, you know, that the publishing company isn't that great, because they apparently, I looked up history about Red Tower Books publishing company, and they published Fourth Wing, and people have said that they more so concentrate on mass producing romantic-y books and not really caring about the plot or if it's edited properly. And also I've seen that some people have said that in their audiobooks they leave certain things out. I'm like, okay, that's not good. But I listened to a lot of this one, and also I read quite a bit of it, and I was not lost at all. It was definitely the same chapter that I was listening to was exactly what I was up to. So I didn't miss anything in it. So anyway, I loved it. This was my book of the month. I have it over on my shelf now. I didn't even read the physical book, but I wanted to keep it because I think I also got those book. I literally paid $3 for it, for that entire book of the month box. They also didn't charge me for my subscription in January because my book was my box was so delayed. So I'm like, I'm just gonna keep it because I fucking loved it. So basically this book is about, I only have 2 more books to talk about, and I'm already out of breath. This book is about Erin and Deedon, and basically Erin is a barmaid, and she has 2 other sisters, and they've never really been like well off. They haven't really had money. But Erin just doesn't want to marry. She's not interested in love. She's not interested in marriage. She's not interested in men. But she wants, like, the best for her sisters, and she wants to find them someone to take care of them and to love them. So basically, Deedon is the crown prince And he kind of really reminds me of Flynn Rider. He's so funny. Like, so I just thought this book was so fucking funny. I loved their banter. I loved their chemistry with each other. So obviously they end up developing a romance. So Prince Deodan, um, even though Erin says she never wants to marry, and Prince Deodan is trying to find a wife, but also he is under a curse from these rings of fate. And he doesn't really know how to control his power. But I liked this so much because even though people were claiming that it was copying Lord of the Rings or Princess Bride, and there was one part that was really copying Princess Bride, but it almost made it its own as well. But since I was so in love with the book at that point, that didn't happen until like 60 or 70% into it. It didn't even affect how much I still loved the book because I'm like, I've never read Princess Bride or Lord of the Rings. I've seen all the movies and I've seen Princess Bride. And it's, since I hadn't read the books yet, I'm like, I'm going to enjoy this for what it is. And I just thought I had the best time reading this book. So this was definitely the book that I had the most fun reading in January. I just loved it. It was so fucking fun. So basically, he's trying to find a way to break his curse. So he asks, it's like this kind of similar to Seven Deadly Thorns' plot where the main male character in that book asks the female main character to marry him. So Deodan does the same thing in this book, and Erin is like completely caught off guard, and she's like, why the fuck do you want to marry me? We don't even know each other. I don't want to marry you. And it's like this whole thing that starts their banter, and it's just so fucking funny. I absolutely loved this book. It was so fun. Please read it for yourself and make your own decision on whether or not you're going to like it. I didn't think I was going to be in the mood for this book. I was like, another fantasy book, because like I wasn't really in the mood for it after Dawn of the Firebird, and I fucking loved it. It was so good. And then the last book that I read in January isn't even out yet, but I really wanted to read this book because I was so excited to read this once I received the arc of it. So I received the arc like last week, and I picked it up like right after I finished Rings of Fate. And that is the third book in the Undone series by Peyton Corin. So the first book is called Unsteady. The second book is called Unloved. And I read both of them last year and I loved both of them. So I really wanted to read the third book. So I was very lucky to receive the third book called Unbound. And I kept on seeing 5-star reviews of this book, and even though it's not out yet, I see that it went down a little bit, but this is still like the highest rated book in the series right now. And for good reason, because this book was fantastically sad, but also beautifully written in a way where there wasn't much comedy in this book, but you cared so deeply for the characters from like basically the first chapter or two that you want to find out why their relationship didn't work out. So basically, I'm not going to say too much about it. I gave it a 5 stars though. I freaking loved it because obviously it's so early for it to be out yet. I just want to give a little review. So, Paloma and Bennett were together for a while, and then they ended up breaking up. And it starts off in the book where they are broken up, and you have to understand or want to find out why they ended up breaking up. But they both suffer from mental health issues and also mental disabilities. Like he has OCD and she has PTSD and anxiety disorder, and he has anxiety disorder as well. So basically, like, the reason why I like these sports romance books a lot, because, like, I don't really read sports romance that much, but these ones are, like, a lot deeper. And this one was definitely the darkest and most serious book out of the 3 so far. Like, Unsteady and Unloved was still so cute. I loved the romance in them. There were some parts, I think I did cry in the second book for a little bit, but this one made me cry quite a bit because there's some parts that get so dark in it, not as dark as Boys of Tommen, but it kind of explores like one of those themes that Boys with Tommen, like, literally broke my heart about. So, but this book, Peyton Curran's writing in this book was so beautiful. And this was my favorite romance that I've read in months. This is my first 5-star romance since Red, White, and Royal Blue back in July. I haven't had like this 5-star feeling about a romance in so long, and I knew from the very first page, I'm like, this is going to be a 5-star book. So I'm so glad that I read it. That's all I'm going to say about it though, because I don't want to like spoil anything. So you just like can't really put it down because you have to find out why they can't be together, but you're dying for them to be together, and it's like, oh my God. But like, it's not like a miscommunication thing. It's just because like they have so many issues that they need to figure out, like that they think that they can't be together. And that's all I'm going to say. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of January. So I did start off the month strong, year strong, reading 20 books. So my favorite book that I read was Rings of Fate and Unbound. I'm kind of tied with those two, but probably the most fun is Rings of Fate. And I also loved The Bones Beneath My Skin. So those were definitely my top 3 reads in January. And then my bottom 3 would have to be Deep Cuts, Voyage of the Damned, and Dawn of the Firebird. I didn't hate The Bodyguard or Not Another Love Song, but Dawn of the Firebird just dragged too much for me. But like I said, I don't usually have like all over the place ratings in one month. This was a very interesting month of reading for me. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. But excuse me. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on my Instagram at CBW819. And check out my Goodreads and my TikTok linked in the description box below. And I hope you guys have a great day and keep reading. And let me know if you've read any of these books or if they're on your TBR. What's on your February TBR? I would love to know, even though no one ever tells me. But it's okay. That's why I still ask. So yeah, bye.